everybody. This is Lisa from Knit Sheep Yarns. I had some winding to do, so I thought I would jump on right quick and share some winding tips while I was at it. What am I winding right now? It is Juniper Moon Farms Cumulus. It's a 94% cotton, 6% nylon, and each skein is 100 grams, and it's 251 yards to a gram. It feels like a dream. It is soft, lofty, and works out beautifully. Now, I had started this before, but I'm just going to keep going now. What you want to do is, if you have a Swift, or even if you don't have a Swift, always have some tension on your yarn. That's going to prevent the skein from getting tangled. And if you've had to deal with a tangled skein, avoid it at all costs. You don't have to stretch it taut, like super crazy tight like a bowstring, but you just want there to be a little bit of tension just so the yarn lays so that all of the strands are aligned and going in one direction and nothing's crossing over itself. Run it through the ball winder, and once again, even when you're working with a ball winder, you don't need to pull this yarn tight. You always want to leave a little, what I call it, breathing space. Now with a cotton yarn, you don't have to worry about stretching, but if this were wool, you can actually stretch your yarn a bit and it will make your gauge be off and things won't go as well as they could. When you're winding yarn by hand, you can create space so that the yarn can kind of collapse in on itself a little bit just by using something wide in the middle. If you have a Nossapina, that's perfect. But even a can of hairspray, you can wrap that yarn around, leaving that hole in the center for the yarn to release tension into. Now, when you first put your yarn on the Swift, you're going to have to look for the ties. You can have any number of ties on a skein. Everybody ties their skeins, pretty individually. So just go once around completely and snip off all the ties. Don't be afraid to snip the ties. Usually it's just waste yarn, but sometimes they will use the yarn itself. Cutting it is the easiest way. Some knots will come out and some knots are just impenetrable. Okay, when you're using a Swift and a winder, especially one that, the skein is good and it's very smooth, it's very tempting to go fast. Don't be fooled. That yarn is waiting to tangle up on itself. So go nice and slow. You don't want to have to come to a sudden stop and jerk the yarn and pull it tight. Like right now, I see the end of my yarn coming, so I am slowing down because my winder and Swift go really fast. There we go. Just going to wind on the last of it now. Now when you get to the end, I like to tuck the outside end of my yarn underneath one of the loops of yarn on the outside. I pull out the tail that I left and just slide my ball, well, my cake really, off the winder. And my winder makes these flat bottom cakes that I absolutely adore. Now what I like to do is I'll take the ball band, put 2 slits in it, and wind the end around the slits. That way, if I don't use this yarn right away, I won't have mystery yarn when I discover it in my stash and go, oh wow, that's nice. I should do something with that. Okay, so here's a skein that's gotten a little bit mixed up. The first thing I'm going to do is untwist it. See, I've got my hand in there. I'm going to put a little tension on it, and that straightened everything out. And while I've got some tension still, I'm going to put it over at least one arm of the Swift. Slide it over the next arm. Third, and this one I'm going to pull in a little bit so that as I draw it back out, I'm applying tension. And you see everything is nice and straight. I don't see any untoward twists in my skein. And these are one of the ties I was telling you about. So I can pull it up. This one happens to just be cotton string. I'm going to cut it, pull it out, and I'm going to look. Now this one, I don't know if you guys can see, it's cotton string and a little bit of the yarn. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut it right next to the knot. That way I know I'm not going to cut into my skein, but I free up the ends pretty quickly. You're going to have an outside end, and that's the end you want to wind from, and an inside end. If it's short enough, I'll just let it lie. But if it's pretty long, I have a clip on the inside of my swift. Let me turn my table a little bit so you might be able to see it. And I can clip that end to the swift. This is actually my favorite part of this swift situation. When I thread my end onto the ball winder, I usually leave about, I would call that conservatively 5 inches. And my ball winder, like most ball winders, have a slot you can just pop the yarn into. So what that does is that it holds onto the yarn so that the center pole doesn't slip into the middle of the cake and, you know, disappear into the ether. And now I'm ready to just wind. So I'm going to keep my eye on it because every once in a while you hit a snag. But so far with this yarn, it's been smooth sailing. I also wanted to let you all know about some things that are going on next month. The first event we have coming up is our first annual Super Bowl Sunday sale. We'll be having a sale on several of the yarns in the shop, and there might be a couple of surprises in too. I gotta see what comes in the mail this week. Also, I want to remind you guys that First Sundays is beginners for knitting. So if you're thinking about brushing up on your skills or you've always wanted to learn, First Sunday at a Knit Sheep, 11:30. You can check our website for all the details. Happily, this looks like it's going to be a smooth winding job, and I hope all of your skeins wind up this smoothly too. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye. That's on a touch screen.